Claude Cyrus holds the title of first-class sorcerer, one of only 10 individuals in the entire world to possess such a rank. It is said that his magic is powerful enough to move the very stars themselves. At the age of 17, he is appointed as a professor at the Royal Academy of Magic, becoming the youngest professor in its history. As a young and charismatic leader, he is expected to nurture an entirely new generation of sorcerers. However, not long afterward, he mysteriously disappears without leaving behind a single trace. On the outskirts of the capital, a girl questions whether Spica is truly certain about jumping from such an enormous height, warning that if she falls, the outcome will certainly not be pleasant. Spica dismisses the concern and tells her friend to simply watch. She begins reciting a spell, and her staff starts responding to her magic. However, the attempt immediately goes wrong, and she plunges straight off the massive cliff, crashing to the ground below with blood streaming from her nose. Her friend Arya bursts into laughter, remarking that she had already warned Spica that she could not accomplish it, although watching her stubbornly try every single time always brightens her day. Spica angrily tells Arya to be quiet. Arya admits that she is honestly surprised. Spica escapes with nothing worse than a nosebleed, and jokingly suggests that perhaps martial arts would suit her far better than magic. Spica immediately rejects the suggestion, insisting that she is destined to become a sorcerer, and knows it with complete certainty. She declares that this is nothing more than a minor setback. It is precisely because of that determination that she intends to enroll at the Diana Academy of Magic, the very academy where Claude Cyrus once taught. Ever since she was young, it has been her dream to study there and eventually become a first-class sorcerer just like him. Arya questions how Spica expects to accomplish that goal when she does not possess even a single drop of magical power. Spica insists that becoming stronger is a gradual process, and explains that she has been practicing flying magic every single day. Arya points out that what Spica has actually been doing is repeatedly throwing herself off cliffs rather than flying. Arya then comments that Spica certainly knows how to choose difficult role models. She brings up the terrorist attack carried out by the heretics at Diana Academy 2 years earlier, and recalls the widespread belief that Claude abandoned his students during the crisis before disappearing. Many people now label him a coward for supposedly running away. Spica immediately tells Arya to stop speaking that way, insisting that everyone has their own role models. She even admits that she hates hearing Arya insult Claude. Arya asks whether Spica is angry, reminding her that she is only saying these things because she genuinely worries about her. She believes that if Spica continues on this path, she will never be accepted into Diana Academy. Arya explains that improving at magic requires guidance from an experienced sorcerer and wonders why Spica does not simply hire a private tutor. Spica explains that she comes from a large family, making money extremely limited, so paying for a tutor is impossible. Because of that, she has no choice but to figure everything out on her own. Arya concludes that Spica leaves her with no alternative. Since they are both planning to enter Diana Academy together, she decides that she, the self-proclaimed genius Arya, will personally teach Spica. As payment, she jokingly claims that Spica can repay her with her own body. Spica immediately questions whether Arya came all the way there simply to tease her. After that exchange, she heads back home. Later, Spica stands alone on the roof of her house, stubbornly thinking that Arya is an idiot and convincing herself that she does not need anyone's help. She believes she can accomplish everything on her own. Moments later, however, she loses her footing once again and falls off the roof. Nearby, a group of children hears the loud crash and asks their mother what the sound was. Their mother casually replies that it is probably just Spica jumping off the roof again. As Spica falls through the air once more, Arya's words echo repeatedly in her mind, reminding her that if she continues like this, she will never be able to get into Diana Academy. Spica knows that the entrance examination for Diana Academy is less than a year away. She realizes that if she were to take the exam now, she would undoubtedly fail. However, she has no money and does not know a single sorcerer who could teach her, leaving her with no idea what she is supposed to do. Just then, she hears an irritated voice telling someone to be quiet because they had finally managed to wake him up. Looking around in surprise, she discovers that the speaker is an ordinary-looking cat. The cat grumbles that if Spica intends to kill herself, she should do it somewhere else. Completely stunned, Spica wonders what she has just witnessed and questions whether the cat actually spoke. She even begins to wonder if she has somehow awakened a magical ability that allows her to communicate with animals. The cat is equally astonished and questions whether Spica can actually understand what he is saying. Spica immediately asks whether he is a bakaneko, Without another word, the cat walks over to her and casts Sagittarius magic. The spell sends Spica soaring high into the air before she comes crashing back down to the ground. The cat sternly tells her never to call him a bakaneko again. He explains that although he currently looks like an ordinary cat, he was once a human and, on top of that, a skilled sorcerer. A powerful curse transformed him into his current feline form, but despite that, he is still capable of using magic. Hearing this, Spica is overwhelmed with excitement and immediately asks whether he would become her master. She insists that she does not care who he is or what he looks like, and desperately begs him to teach her magic. The cat remarks that this may sound strange coming from someone in his situation, but he wonders whether she is completely insane. Spica immediately explains that her dream is to enter Diana Academy. The cat questions why she wants to attend such a prestigious academy when she has only just fallen off her own roof. He asks whether she truly understands how impossibly high the standards are for admission. Spica readily admits that she knows exactly how difficult it will be, which is precisely why she is begging him for help. Royal Diana Academy is the most prestigious of all magic academies, a world-renowned institution whose graduates go on to become leaders in their respective fields or secure positions serving the royal family. Despite that, the cat declines her request, saying that he will pass because there is nothing in it for him. Spica immediately stops him, pleading with him to wait. She explains that, although she does not have much money, she is willing to do absolutely anything he asks, if only he will teach her. The cat lets out an amused snicker and repeats her words, questioning whether she truly means anything. Spica nervously replies that if he expects payment with her body, she would honestly rather not, but she supposes she could at least try, if that is what it takes. The cat instantly rejects the idea. He thinks to himself that she can understand everything he says, and is genuinely willing to do anything in exchange for his help, making this an opportunity too good to ignore. He finally agrees, explaining that he simply cannot turn away someone who is truly in need. Overjoyed, Spica thanks him repeatedly before introducing herself as Spica Virgo and telling him that it is a pleasure to meet him. The cat casually accepts the introduction before announcing that the very first thing he wants is a proper meal. A short while later, he happily enjoys the food she prepares for him. While eating, he thanks her for the delicious lunch and even asks her to apply a little more pressure while giving him a massage. At that very moment, Spica's brother walks in and wonders why she is talking to herself. Startled, Spica hurriedly tells her family not to come inside. The cat quietly observes that she certainly has a large family. Spica explains that there are 8 people in her household. Her brother becomes even more confused as he watches her apparently holding a conversation with a tiny kitten. He concludes that she has finally lost her mind and wonders whether she has hit her head one too many times after all of her falls. Spica quickly realizes that everyone else believes she is talking to herself, meaning she is apparently the only person who can hear the cat's voice. She turns toward the cat once more and politely asks whether he could begin teaching her magic as soon as possible. The cat agrees and tells her that they should move somewhere else before beginning her training. They reach the capital, where Spica questions whether this is the place where they will be training. He confirms that it is and tells her to stand in a particular spot. He then instructs her to raise one of her arms and repeat the spell together with him. However, instead of sounding like a magical incantation, it feels more like he is making her place an order for a beer. At that very moment, a waiter suddenly appears, cheerfully announcing that one beer is on the way and that it will cost 300 G. The cat immediately becomes delighted, declaring that he has always wanted a beer and that it has been ages since he last had one. Even the other girl cannot help commenting on how adorable the cat looks. Completely losing her patience, Spica grabs him and starts choking him in frustration, shouting that this is not magic at all. She accuses him of never having any intention of teaching her in the first place, and angrily points out that she does not even have enough money to pay for his ridiculous drinks. The cat quietly concludes that this girl is nothing but bad news. Since he has already had his fun, he decides that he will simply give her an impossible task so that she eventually gives up. He explains that this will be his final request, and that if she can accomplish it, he will genuinely teach her magic. Determined to hear what the task is, Spica tells him to go ahead. Soon afterward, they arrive at the Royal Academy. The enormous collection housed within the academy contains books gathered from every corner of the nation. The shelves are filled with everything from simple picture books to powerful grimoires, as well as legendary books hidden away from the public eye. Among them is the legendary Book of Providence, a grimoire said to imbue anyone who reads it with boundless wisdom. Providence refers to the power of being all-seeing. The cat explains that her task is to search through that book and discover a spell capable of breaking his curse. That alone is the request he gives her. Spica immediately asks where the Book of Providence is located. He calmly replies that if he knew its location himself, he would never have needed to ask her. Nevertheless, he believes that it has to be somewhere within this library, and is convinced that she will eventually find it if she searches thoroughly enough. Overwhelmed by the sheer size of the library, Spica exclaims that there must be at least 1 million books inside. The cat casually responds by giving her a month to complete the task. She immediately questions whether he has been listening to anything she has been saying, and asks if he seriously intends to sit back and watch while she does everything alone. He admits that, as much as he would like to help, there is a problem. If any non-human so much as attempts to remove a book from the shelves, the mother book, the overseer of the entire library, instantly detects the action and sounds the alarm, causing the guards to arrive immediately. Because of that, he has no choice but to leave the search entirely to her. Hearing this only leaves Spica wondering how she is supposed to find such a legendary book all by herself. The cat casually remarks that he guesses he can officially accept her as his apprentice. Having no other option available, she reluctantly accepts the challenge and firmly declares that she will definitely find the book. Meanwhile, the cat privately thinks that there is absolutely no chance she will locate the Book of Providence within a single month. As for taking on an apprentice, he quickly dismisses the idea in his own mind, believing that apprentices are far too much work and deciding that it is nothing personal. Just then, his attention is drawn to a nearby newspaper. The headline reports that Claude has disappeared. Various rumors circulate about his fate, with some claiming that he has run away, others believing that he is dead, and still others imagining even worse possibilities. Whatever the truth may be, his reputation has completely fallen apart. A moment later, the cat notices something unexpected. Spica has suddenly transformed into a cat herself. She explains that she had been reading a book about polymorphing, and now she has somehow become a cat. The cat bursts into laughter and warns her that she needs to be much more careful, because some of the tomes contain spells that activate the moment they are opened. She continues examining the countless books surrounding her. Among them are an actual pop-up picture book, a book with seemingly infinite pages, and even a human-shaped book. After witnessing one bizarre tome after another, she can only conclude that these books are terrifying and decides to call it a day. Watching her reaction, the cat quietly thinks to himself that she will probably give up after no more than 3 days. However, contrary to his expectations, Spica continues visiting the library day after day without missing a single day. 1 day passes, then 2, then 3, and she keeps returning every day, tirelessly collecting information and studying everything she can find. One day, the cat approaches her and asks what she has been writing and whether she has made any progress in searching for the book. She explains that she has been learning how to read runes because he told her that the Book of Providence is a legendary tome. That made her wonder whether it might be written in an ancient language. Since she does not know any ancient languages, she decides to study them herself. Her explanation surprises him, and he quietly thinks that she has come up with a good idea. He never imagined that she was the studious type. Spica admits that she is surprised by herself as well. She has never been particularly good at reading, but the more deeply she studies, the more fascinating everything becomes. Before she realizes it, she simply wants to keep learning more. The cat tells her that it seems he underestimated her. However, he also has bad news. The closing bell has rung, and her time is officially up. He reminds her that exactly 1 month has passed since she began searching for the Book of Providence. Desperately, Spica pleads for just a little more time. She points out that she has even learned how to read runes during the past month. Nevertheless, he tells her that extending the deadline will not change anything. Still refusing to give up, Spica begs him once more, insisting that no matter what it takes, she wants to enter Diana. This causes him to question why she is so fixated on Diana in the first place, and what she is truly aiming to achieve. After some hesitation, she admits that she wants to become a first-class sorcerer, just like Lord Sama. Hearing that, he questions why she would admire someone whom everyone calls a coward. She immediately dismisses those rumors as nothing more than gossip, insisting that she knows how strong Lord Sama truly is. She asks whether he remembers the day the heretics attacked Diana. She happened to be near the campus during that attack and became caught in the middle of the battle. She recalls watching the people around her collapse one after another until eventually all the screaming and crying came to an end. Everything suddenly became completely silent. At that moment, she believed that her life was over. The only thing she wished for was to see her family one last time. She had already accepted her fate when Claude-sama suddenly appeared. He approached her and asked whether she was all right. He praised her for holding on for so long and told her that she was a real fighter. To Spica, Claude-sama was the one who saved her life. He was powerful and kind, carrying himself like a true prince. He never ran away from a fight. Ever since that day, she has wanted to become someone just like him, a sorcerer with the strength to protect others. Hearing her explanation, the cat questions what protecting others has ever accomplished for her. He concludes that he knew all along that she was an idiot. His words immediately infuriate Spica. She angrily shouts that perhaps her master deserved being turned into a cat after all, and that maybe the world would actually be better off if she simply left him that way forever. The cat walks away, explaining that he understands where she is coming from, but they should end things here. In his opinion, they are only wasting each other's time at this point. However, Spica refuses to accept that this is how everything ends. She desperately searches for anything she can do, believing that there has to be some way to change the situation, anything at all. Just then, her eyes suddenly fall upon one particular book. She quickly calls out to the cat, drawing his attention to the cover and pointing out that the symbols on it appear to be runes. He agrees that they certainly look like runes, and the two of them decide to examine the mysterious book more closely. Spica activates the summoner, causing the book to emerge from the shelf before opening into an enormous volume. As she stares inside in complete amazement, she realizes that the interior is unlike any ordinary book. Instead, an actual pathway stretches out from within its pages. She can only stare in astonishment, wondering what exactly she is looking at as the path inside the book unfolds before her. The cat explains that the passage is a secret route. He praises Spica for discovering it, and says that he is certain it will lead them to the Book of Providence. Wasting no time, he urges her to move forward before the guards discover their presence. Although Spica hesitates and questions whether they are truly going inside, the two of them remain unaware that someone else is secretly watching them from a distance. As they step through the hidden passage, they find themselves surrounded by complete darkness. The cat tells Spica to hold onto his tail so that she does not lose her way. Even with his guidance, she is unable to see anything around her. Moments later, a brilliant flash of light illuminates the entire area, revealing a breathtaking space unlike anything she has ever seen. The cat observes that the place resembles some kind of separate dimension. He concludes that it must be where the kingdom stores all of its forbidden texts and books containing state-level secrets. Spica wonders whether the Book of Providence could truly be hidden in such a place. The cat replies that there is a very good chance they will find it there. Almost immediately after he says those words, a mysterious stone tablet standing before them suddenly declares itself to be the Book of Providence. The unexpected voice startles Spica, causing her to cry out in shock as she realizes that the stone tablet is actually speaking. The tablet addresses her by her full name, Spica Virgo, leaving her even more astonished because it somehow knows exactly who she is. It calmly confirms that it possesses such knowledge because it is Providence itself. Without wasting another moment, Spica asks whether it knows how to undo the curse afflicting the cat. The tablet confirms that it does. It explains that the cat suffers from the curse of reincarnation. Rather than being an ordinary polymorphic spell, it is a forbidden form of magic that reincarnates an individual's existence. His original body has already ceased to exist, leaving only his soul behind. Spica anxiously asks whether such a curse can be reversed. The tablet reveals that there is only a single method capable of breaking it, and that the necessary power belongs solely to her. According to the tablet, she alone possesses the magic of rebirth. Both Spica and the cat are left completely bewildered by this revelation. Spica insists that she has no idea how to cast such magic because she has never learned any spells. The tablet points out that she has failed to notice the unusual power already sleeping within her. It asks whether she has realized how unnaturally fast she recovers from injuries. Those words immediately remind Spica of her earlier injury. Although she hates admitting it, she cannot deny that she escaped with nothing more than a simple nosebleed, something that now seems incredibly strange. The tablet explains that her miraculous recovery is proof that the power of rebirth already exists within her, even if it still lies dormant. Spica immediately turns toward her master and asks whether he heard everything the tablet just revealed. Even the cat remarks that the entire situation seems like an extraordinary coincidence. After thinking for a moment, however, he begins to doubt that it is merely chance. The fact that Spica can hear his voice at all suggests that destiny may have brought them together for a reason. Hope begins to fill both of them. Spica realizes that this may truly be her opportunity to help him, while the cat starts believing that he might finally be freed from the curse that has bound him for so long. Determined to save him, Spica immediately asks the tablet what she must do. The tablet calmly explains that she must imbue the cat with her rebirth magic. It then reveals that the method requires her to kiss him. The unexpected instruction instantly causes Spica to blush with embarrassment. She awkwardly protests, pointing out that she is still far too young for something like that. Attempting to reassure her, the cat tells her to stop overthinking it and suggests that she simply treat it like performing CPR rather than anything romantic. Despite his encouragement, Spica admits that it would still be her very first kiss. The entire situation feels as though it has come straight out of a fairy tale. While she finds that idea somewhat exciting, she cannot help feeling conflicted about kissing someone on the lips when she has never even fallen in love. Before she can finish expressing her concerns, the tablet abruptly corrects her assumption. It points out that no one ever said the kiss had to be on the lips, then bluntly reveals that she must instead kiss the cat on his butthole. This revelation leaves both Spica and the cat even more bewildered. They simultaneously cry out in complete disbelief, demanding to know what on earth the tablet is talking about and why such a bizarre method would be necessary. The tablet calmly explains that rectal administration is the fastest route for the absorption of magical energy. According to its reasoning, this method allows the magic to spread throughout the body with maximum efficiency, as though it were simply stating an unquestionable scientific fact. Even the cat is clearly disturbed by the explanation, admitting that the suggestion is far too much for him and that he does not like the idea in the slightest. Meanwhile, Spica vehemently protests, shouting that there is absolutely no way her first kiss is ever going to be on someone's butt. The cat quickly begs her not to scream about such an embarrassing topic at the top of her lungs. Hoping to avoid the humiliating solution altogether, he insists that there has to be another way. Before either of them can think any further, the cat suddenly notices that they are no longer alone. He warns Spica that they have company. She immediately turns around and asks who has appeared. After taking in the scent, the cat realizes that it belongs to one of the royal guards. The guard apologizes for intruding upon them, explaining that he had to enter because the library is currently under attack. At that very moment, an enormous monster suddenly emerges before them. The terrifying creature immediately causes Spica to cry out in alarm as she realizes that a monster has appeared. The cat instantly recognizes the creature as Orthrus, a magical beast commonly employed by the heretics. Spica asks him to remind her who the heretics are, recalling that she had heard the military had already eliminated them following the terrorist attack. The cat explains that, although the military managed to wipe out many of them, it appears they failed to eradicate every last member. He grimly concludes that the situation is extremely dangerous because the remaining heretics have almost certainly come to steal the forbidden tomes. Spica hurriedly turns toward the cat and asks what they should do. He explains that reinforcements from the royal capital have most likely already been dispatched. Until those forces arrive, their only option is to keep as much distance from the monster as possible. Without another moment to spare, the two of them immediately flee from the monstrous beast. As they continue running, the cat complains that he specifically told Spica not to grab his tail. Nevertheless, they continue desperately trying to escape. While running, Spica cannot help thinking that if the monster manages to strike them even once, they are going to die. The cat quickly realizes that he has underestimated their enemy. He admits that there is no possibility of simply outrunning creatures like these. Since escape is impossible, he concludes that they have no choice but to rely on a bait-and-switch strategy. He tells Spica to keep the monster occupied while he circles around to attack from behind. Spica immediately objects to the plan, asking whether their roles should not be reversed instead. The cat points out that, at the moment, he is nothing more than a tiny kitten. In response, Spica shouts that she is also nothing more than a helpless little girl. After a brief pause, the cat proposes another solution. He tells her that she must break his curse. If he returns to his human form, he confidently believes he will become unstoppable against the enemy before them. However, Spica tearfully rejects the idea, insisting that she would rather do anything else. The cat reminds her that they are facing certain death if they continue hesitating. Even so, Spica argues that, regardless of his current appearance, he is still a human on the inside. If she goes through with the tablet's method, she believes her hopes for love and romance will be completely ruined. The cat counters by telling her that preserving her life is far more important than worrying about such things. Nevertheless, Spica stubbornly insists that if those are truly her only choices, she would honestly rather die. Realizing how determined she is, the cat sighs and remarks that he finally understands. In his opinion, she simply does not have what it takes. His words strike Spica deeply. For a moment, she begins to believe that perhaps he is right and that she truly does not have what it takes. However, in the very next instant, she remembers the dream she has always carried within her heart. She recalls her desire to become someone like Claude, a powerful sorcerer with the strength to protect others. The cat leaves, remarking that he guesses everything she said about being willing to do anything was nothing more than empty words. With that, he declares that their deal is off. Spica immediately tries to run after him, but before she can reach him, the monster suddenly attacks from behind. She believes that this is the end for her. She thinks that this is exactly what she deserves, after saying that she would rather be dead. However, at that very moment, the cat suddenly appears in front of her and uses the secretary's magic, Whirlwind, to block the monster's attack. Spica calls out to him in shock. He tells her not to just stand there and orders her to get out of there. He comments that she really is such a troublesome apprentice. Even while saying that, he is desperately protecting her. Watching him risk himself for her leaves Spica confused. She cannot understand why he is doing this. He was the one who claimed that protecting other people was a foolish thing to do, yet once again, he is the one saving her. She realizes that she has not changed at all since that day. She is still nothing more than a coward who talks big but cannot back up her own words. Even so, she chose the impossible dream of becoming a powerful sorcerer. Determined not to run away anymore, she chases after the cat instead. When she reaches him, she finds him lying unconscious on the ground. She apologizes to him, admitting that she came back even though he told her to escape. She knows she is completely powerless and that there is no chance she can defeat that monster by herself. However, she realizes that there is still one thing she is capable of doing, and she knows she has to try it. With that resolve, she leans down and kisses him. The curse immediately begins to break. Before her eyes, the cat transforms back into a human. The young man instantly faces the monster and mocks it for picking the wrong opponent, calling it nothing more than a dumb mutt. He remarks that it feels incredible to finally have his own body back after spending 2 long years trapped in that form. Spica's eyes widen in complete disbelief as she realizes that the person standing before her is none other than Claude Sama. Without wasting another moment, Claude summons the secretary's magic, Crystal Arrow, and launches it directly at the monster. The attack freezes the creature solid, killing it instantly. He casually remarks that the monster will probably be eating dirt for the rest of its life, before dismissively calling it a little puppy. After the battle ends, Claude senses the surroundings and concludes that he can no longer detect any traces of magic. From that, he determines that the heretic has already fled. Spica remains frozen in place. It has been years since she last witnessed it with her own eyes, but she recognizes that magic immediately. There is no doubt in her mind that it truly belongs to Claude. She never imagined that the mysterious cat could actually be Claude Sama all along. Claude, however, questions her surprise, pointing out that she should have already figured it out by now. Spica realizes that she never considered the possibility because she never imagined Claude Sama would possess such a twisted personality. She cannot help wondering what happened to the kind and gentle Claude Sama she admired 2 years ago. She even begins questioning whether the image she once had of him was nothing more than an illusion. Then another realization suddenly strikes her. If the cat truly is Claude, then that means she just kissed him. Before she can even finish processing the thought, Claude casually knocks her onto the ground, claiming that his hand simply slipped. Completely bewildered, she demands to know why he did that. Claude sternly warns her never to tell anyone about what happened. He also tells her not to create imaginary versions of people in her own mind, because doing so will only leave her disappointed. He reminds her that he is simply himself and no one else. Hearing those words, Spica finally accepts that Claude is nothing like the sweet and gentle person she once imagined. Even so, she cannot ignore one undeniable truth. once again. Claude has saved her life, just as he did several years ago. Claude then announces that, since he has returned to normal, their business together is finished. He reminds her that he already canceled their agreement earlier and prepares to leave. However, before he can get very far, he suddenly transforms back into a cat, once again. Both of them are left stunned. Spica sarcastically remarks that it is a real shame, because she thought their business had already ended. Claude immediately stops her from leaving and asks her to wait a moment. He points out that, under the circumstances, it seems they now share the same fate. Completely annoyed, Spica threatens that she is going to rip his tongue right out of his mouth. Claude immediately questions the Book of Providence, demanding an explanation because this is not the agreement they made. The Book of Providence explains that the reason is very simple. Spica still lacks experience. The person who casts the curse and the person who breaks it must possess magical abilities of the same level. Only then can the curse be completely removed. Since Spica's magical power is still insufficient, the curse cannot remain permanently broken. Whenever her magic is exhausted, Claude automatically reverts back into a cat. After hearing the explanation, Claude concludes that the only solution is to train Spica until she becomes a first-class sorcerer equal to himself. Spica's eyes widen at the mention of becoming a first-class sorcerer. Claude points out that such an arrangement benefits both of them. He then asks whether she is willing to do it. Spica wonders if he genuinely believes someone like her is capable of reaching that level. Claude confidently states that she will have to become that strong if she intends to remain his apprentice. In his opinion, it should not be a problem. He then begins planning her future. As the first step, he decides that he must get her accepted into Diana. Unfortunately, he knows he will not be allowed inside during the entrance examinations, meaning he cannot personally help her during that stage. He considers the possibility of temporarily returning to human form to make certain arrangements. Overwhelmed with emotion, Spica instinctively addresses him as Master. Claude immediately corrects her. From now on, she is to call him Sensei. He explains that he once served as a professional professor at Diana. If he simply speaks with the dean, he is confident that he will be reinstated without difficulty. Once that happens, he will become her teacher at the academy and personally train her throughout the next 3 years. Spica can hardly believe what she is hearing. Claude-sama is going to become her teacher. Not only that, but he will personally provide her with special training for 3 entire years. The entire situation feels so unbelievable that she wonders whether she is dreaming. Little does Claude know, however, that he has greatly underestimated what awaits him upon returning as a professor. The class assigned to him is the infamous Pandora Box, a classroom occupied exclusively by the most troublesome and problematic students at Diana. Claude tells Spica that they have finally met again. Spica replies that he has no idea how long she has been looking forward to this day. Claude apologizes for suddenly asking such a thing, but says that he needs a favor from her. According to him, it would be a tremendous help if she would kiss his butt. The absurd request immediately jolts Spica awake from her dream. She sits upright in bed, thinking that it was an absolutely horrible nightmare. Just then, Claude begins loudly banging on her window, telling her to stop sleeping because it is time to get to work. Still half asleep, Spica apologizes while wondering why she had to dream about something so unbelievably embarrassing. She is Spica, a 14-year-old girl whose greatest goal is to enter Diana Academy, the most prestigious magic school in existence. Her master is Claude, an extraordinary sorcerer who has been transformed into a cat. The day has finally arrived. Today marks the beginning of her training. Claude announces that it is time to begin. Before they start, however, he asks her an important question. He asks what the most important factor is in being able to use magic. Spica wonders whether it has something to do with maintaining a positive mindset. Claude responds with an expression of complete disbelief, wondering what kind of answer that is. Spica cannot help thinking that he almost seems like he is trying to irritate her. Claude explains that the answer has nothing to do with vague concepts like positive thinking. The true foundation of magic is one's magical attribute. Every person is born possessing a single magical attribute, and it is practically impossible for them to use magic that falls outside of that category. As an example, he explains that if someone does not possess the flying attribute, no amount of effort or determination will ever allow them to fly, no matter how desperately they flap their arms. Curious, Spica asks what her own attribute is. Claude explains that there are 12 magical attributes in total, and a person's attribute is determined by their zodiac sign. This is because the moon and the stars serve as the source of all magic. Hearing this, Spica finally understands why she had so much difficulty trying to fly. Claude further explains that only those born under Sagittarius and Aries possess the flying attribute. Spica suddenly realizes that Arya knew this all along and deliberately let her struggle simply to tease her. She cannot believe Arya would play such a prank on her. She then asks Claude what attribute belongs to her since she was born under Virgo. Claude explains that Virgo is associated with Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. As a result, Virgo's magical attribute is the manipulation of plants. That includes abilities such as making plants grow at will, causing flowers to bloom whenever desired, and helping crops reach full maturity. Spica immediately thinks that it sounds incredibly amazing. She remembers the rebirth magic that the Book of Providence mentioned, and wonders whether that ability is also connected to the Virgo attribute. Claude immediately denies it. He explains that rebirth magic does not belong to any particular magical attribute. Surprised, Spica asks whether it is really such a special form of magic. Claude confirms that it is. Hearing that, Spica begins thinking that perhaps, if she devotes herself entirely to mastering it. Before she can finish the thought, Claude immediately cuts her off. He firmly tells her not to even think about it. He also warns her never to speak about that kind of magic to anyone else. He asks whether she understands. Spica notices that, for the first time, Claude is wearing an exceptionally serious expression. She still has several questions, but she decides that it is probably better not to ask them for now. Claude then decides that it is finally time to put her Virgo magic into practice. He instructs her to make a small seedling grow. First, he tells her to take out her staff. He explains that the staff allows her to focus all of her mana into a single point. Next, the spell functions as the switch that activates her magic. Finally, he tells her that the most important step is to clearly visualize the seedling growing within her mind. Spica is told that the more vivid and well-defined her visualization becomes, the stronger her magic will be. Claude instructs her to try it for herself. She begins chanting the spell while concentrating intensely on the image in her mind. As she activates her Virgo magic anima, the tiny seedling immediately begins to sprout. Overjoyed by her success, she excitedly declares that she has done it and proudly calls out to her master. Claude acknowledges her achievement but calmly points out that being able to activate her magic is only the very first step. He compares it to riding a bicycle with training wheels, explaining that it is merely the beginning of her journey. If she truly wishes to break his curse, she will have to become nothing less than a first-class sorcerer. Because of that, he finds it somewhat concerning that she is already so satisfied with such a basic accomplishment. His words immediately frustrate Spica, who complains that she had forgotten just how self-serving he truly is. Claude teasingly mimics her complaint and remarks that she should actually be grateful for that trait because, if he were not acting in his own interest, no reasonable person would go through the trouble of teaching her magic in the first place. Growing even more irritated, Spica argues that such words are hardly what anyone would expect from a teacher. Although she genuinely appreciates the fact that he is teaching her and has always known that he is rather rough around the edges, she cannot believe how completely heartless he is. Since this is the very first time she has successfully used magic, she believes that offering her even a small amount of praise would not have hurt. Despite her complaints, she quietly admits to herself that this is exactly what allowing herself to daydream has brought upon her. She decides that it is finally time to wake up and bids farewell to her first love in her heart. From that moment onward, she resolves to devote herself entirely to the path of magic and leave those feelings behind. Claude suddenly asks whether she has stopped maintaining her magic. Confused by the question, Spica wonders what he means until she notices that the once tiny seedling has continued growing uncontrollably. It has become so enormous that it lifts her high into the air, leaving her dangling helplessly above the ground. Observing the situation, Claude concludes that she also lacks proper control over her magic. Since she cannot even regulate its output, he refuses to consider her successful and instructs her to try again. As the training continues, Claude reaches a surprising realization. After witnessing her performance throughout the day, he concludes that he had greatly underestimated her. Unfortunately, it is not because of hidden talent, but because he has never encountered a single student who is quite this terrible at controlling magic. Eventually, Spica is safely helped back down to the ground. Shaken by the experience, she begins trembling as self-doubt fills her mind. She starts wondering whether she simply lacks any natural talent for magic at all. Claude bluntly questions whether she had genuinely believed otherwise, offering little comfort. His remark crushes what little confidence she has left, causing her to think that, at this rate, becoming a first-class sorcerer is nothing more than an impossible dream. She even doubts that she will be capable of passing the Academy's entrance examination. At that moment, her brother arrives and informs her that their mother is looking for her. Spica replies that she is currently in the middle of something important, but her brother explains that there is a problem at the orchard. When she goes to see her mother, she learns that her mother has fallen from a ladder and broken her foot, leaving her unable to harvest the crops for quite some time. Feeling apologetic, her mother asks whether Spica could temporarily take over the harvesting duties. Spica hesitates because she still has to prepare for her entrance examinations. However, Claude immediately suggests that she should simply perform the harvesting by using magic instead. According to him, doing so would allow her to accomplish two goals at once by helping her family, while simultaneously training her magical abilities. Spica quickly dismisses the idea, insisting that she cannot possibly do such a thing. Hearing her seemingly speaking to nobody, her mother becomes confused and wonders who exactly she is talking to. Claude then reminds her of a far more practical concern. If her family falls into financial hardship because the harvest is neglected, she will have no way to pay her academy tuition in the first place. Realizing that his reasoning is impossible to ignore, Spica silently admits that he is right. With that decision made, Claude establishes a new training plan. Beginning that very day, with only 6 months remaining until the entrance examination, Spica will carry out every duty on the farm by utilizing her magic. In his opinion, those daily responsibilities will provide all the practical training she needs. Although she follows his plan, Spica cannot help wondering whether such unconventional training will truly be enough for her to pass the examination. Claude simply replies that the answer depends entirely on her. However, Spica remains unconvinced, pointing out that she still cannot even control her magic properly yet. Claude calmly tells Spica not to worry about it and encourages her to simply give it a try. Although she reluctantly agrees, she warns herself that if anything goes wrong, it will be entirely his fault. Taking a deep breath, she once again activates her Virgo magic. This time, the tree branch stretches so far that it begins showering her with oranges. She immediately realizes that she has once again used far too much power. Even so, she admits that it is far better control than anything she has managed before. She recalls Claude's earlier lesson that the more well-defined her visualization is, the stronger her magic becomes. As she reflects on it, she realizes that visualizing these trees is something she has been doing since childhood. She knows the exact height of every tree, the way each branch twists and bends, and the proper method for harvesting the oranges. Creating such an image in her mind is as natural as taking a walk in the park. For the first time, she begins to believe that she might actually be able to master this. Claude reassures her that she should not worry because he will handle whatever mistakes she makes along the way. Hearing that, Spica cannot help suspecting that helping with the harvest had probably been his real objective from the very beginning. Thus begins Spica's unexpected life as a farmer. Her first task is harvesting navel oranges. These oranges are not currently in season, and they are named after the small navel-like protrusion at the bottom of the fruit. They are exceptionally sweet, completely seedless, and incredibly easy to eat. To harvest them, she simply needs to manipulate the branches with her magic. Although the task initially seems straightforward, she quickly discovers that it requires delicate precision. Every time she loses concentration, the branches fling oranges directly toward her, making the work far more difficult than she anticipated. Next comes pruning. To ensure that every tree receives enough sunlight and proper airflow, unnecessary branches must be carefully trimmed away. Under normal circumstances, this work would be done using pruning shears. However, Spica performs the entire task by using her magic, carefully slicing away the excess growth, little by little. As the weather gradually becomes warmer, it is finally the perfect season for harvesting crimson oranges. Their vivid red color makes them especially beautiful, and they become wonderfully delicious when made into fresh juice. Through this work, Spica comes to understand that producing a successful harvest involves much more than simply picking fruit. She must constantly deal with pest control, protect the orchard from birds, and take measures to safeguard the trees against changing weather conditions. Every single day leaves her hands completely full of work, and by the time evening arrives, she is usually exhausted. Even so, she continues pushing herself, because she knows that all of this effort is what allows the oranges to become sweeter and more delicious. Realizing that her hard work directly contributes to the quality of the harvest gives her a deep sense of satisfaction, making every tiring day worthwhile. And so, the days quietly pass. 6 months later, the day before the academy entrance examination finally arrives. By now, Spica effortlessly harvests the oranges with smooth and precise movements. She not only gathers every fruit with ease, but also collects them without making a single mistake. After finishing, she turns to Claude and asks whether she has finally succeeded. He calmly confirms that she has. Even her mother proudly tells her that she has truly done it. With that, the family's homegrown oranges are finally ready, marking the completion of the harvest. Her mother smiles warmly and tells Spica how amazing it is that she managed to harvest the entire orchard in only half a day. She proudly says that she has become a true farmer in her own right. Filled with excitement, Spica declares that she will grow the most delicious oranges the world has ever tasted. However, almost immediately, she realizes that those words are not what she truly wants. She reminds herself that her real dream is not to become a farmer, but to become a sorcerer. Looking back, she realizes that she has spent the last 6 months focusing almost entirely on farm work. That thought makes anxiety begin creeping into her mind. She wonders whether that kind of training alone will really be enough to pass the entrance examination. After all, the only spell she has truly mastered is anima. Unable to suppress her doubts any longer, she asks Claude whether he is certain that she will pass the exam. He casually replies that he honestly does not know. He explains that the examination changes every single year and that the acceptance rate is only 10%. According to him, she will pass only if fortune happens to be on her side. His answer completely shocks her. Even Arya bluntly tells her that she is doomed. She sarcastically remarks that, since Spica can only use magic to grow plants and grass, she would probably be better off taking over the family farm, instead of dreaming about becoming a sorcerer. Annoyed by the teasing, Spica immediately tells Arya to be quiet, insisting that examinations ultimately come down to luck anyway. Arya admits that she never expected Spica to actually learn magic, and considers it nothing short of a miracle. Spica responds by declaring that if she passes the exam while Arya fails, she will never let her forget it and will constantly rub it in her face. That statement immediately makes Arya realize that she cannot afford to fail either. Despite her confident words, Spica feels absolutely miserable inside. She keeps wondering whether she can truly accomplish everything on her own. At that moment, even the bag on her shoulders feels unusually heavy, as though it is reflecting the burden she is carrying in her heart. Before long, an announcement echoes through the area, instructing all Diana examination candidates to line up. The examinees are then provided with complimentary carriage rides to the examination site. Spica is extremely nervous throughout the journey. Arya notices her anxiety and questions why she is acting that way. Spica wonders what Arya means by asking such a thing. She looks around at the other examinees and cannot help thinking that everyone present is supposed to be her competition, yet they all appear overwhelmingly strong. Arya confidently declares that none of that concerns her because she knows she is the strongest person there. As far as she is concerned, there is absolutely nothing to worry about. Hearing such confidence makes Spica wish she could be more like Arya. As the journey continues, the trip seems to be taking much longer than expected. Arya begins wondering where the valley is located. Although Diana is supposed to be in the royal capital, they somehow find themselves traveling deep into the mountains instead. Just as Arya points that out, the carriage suddenly comes to a stop because a massive rock slide blocks the road ahead. Everyone immediately panics, shouting that there is no way they will reach the examination on time. The carriage driver urges everyone to remain calm and suggests turning back for their own safety. However, before anyone can react further, the enormous rocks begin floating in the air. The passengers stare in disbelief, wondering whether this is some kind of magic. Moments later, the rocks merge together and transform into a gigantic stone monster. Spica can only stare in shock, wondering what the terrifying creature is. The children begin shouting among themselves, saying that it resembles a giant person and is unbelievably enormous. The stone monster immediately attacks the carriage. Panic spreads throughout the passengers as everyone begins crying, convinced that they are going to die. During the chaos, Spica is thrown out of the carriage while still trying to comprehend the monstrous creature before her. Claude suddenly emerges from the back of the carriage and identifies the creature as a golem. Spica immediately questions why he followed her all the way there. Claude insists that he definitely did not follow her, and certainly was not planning to bribe the examiner. Hearing that, Spica angrily scolds him for even considering such a thing. Claude then explains that golems are clay dolls that move according to the commands of a sorcerer. Their existence means that someone nearby is controlling them. Spica immediately suspects that the heretics are responsible for the attack. Claude agrees that it appears the heretics are targeting the examination candidates this time. Realizing the danger, Spica concludes that everyone has to escape immediately. Instead of retreating, Arya boldly steps in front of the towering golem and provocatively challenges it, complaining that it is rudely preventing them from reaching their examination. She immediately casts Aquarius Magic Hydro Cannon and unleashes a powerful torrent of water at the monster. Watching this spell leaves Spica completely amazed. She reflects that Aquarians possess the ability to manipulate water freely and greatly enhance its destructive power. However, using such magic requires tremendous mana reserves, along with exceptional intelligence and composure. Claude observes Arya's performance and remarks that she is undeniably a natural talent. Unfortunately, he also points out that her attack is ineffective because the scattered stones simply gather together and reconstruct the golem once again. Seeing the monster regenerate, Spica wonders whether it is completely indestructible. Claude reminds her that the creature has a weakness and questions whether she failed to study that information while spending so much time in the library. After thinking carefully, Spica finally remembers what she read. Sorcerers manipulate golems by controlling them like puppets through specially inscribed spells, and every golem possesses a core that functions as its heart. She carefully observes the monster and notices a stone slab covered with mysterious writing at the exact center where the rocks continue gathering together. She wonders whether Claude believes that object is the core. Remembering the contents of the books, she recalls that a golem comes to life only after a sorcerer inscribes its core with truth. If the written formula is removed from the core, the golem immediately returns to nothing more than ordinary dust. Realizing the truth, Spica understands that she has to save Arya. However, Claude criticizes her, asking whether she truly intends to make Arya handle everything by herself. He questions whether she has learned absolutely nothing during the past 6 months of training. He firmly tells her that she must be the one to destroy the core. Spica immediately begins doubting herself, believing that the only thing she is truly good at is harvesting oranges. She also notices that every other student has already escaped the area. Claude reminds her that her friend is risking her life at that very moment. He asks whether she truly intends to become a first-class sorcerer, and challenges her to remember the reason she wanted that dream in the first place. Just then, Spica notices the stone monster preparing to strike Arya. Without hesitating, she uses anima to pull Arya safely out of the monster's path, barely rescuing her in time. Spica realizes how dangerously close the attack came to hitting her friend, while Arya wonders whether that rescue was actually Spica's doing. At that moment, Spica accepts that her master is right. She realizes that fear has prevented her from fighting until now. She apologizes to Arya and explains that she has figured out the location of the golem's weak spot, meaning she is finally capable of fighting alongside her. Arya immediately points out that Spica is terrified. Spica openly admits that she is. She confesses that she is so frightened that it feels as though her heart is about to burst. Even so, despite overwhelming fear, she still wants to become a sorcerer, capable of protecting everyone. Just as the golem begins to split apart, Spica cries out in frustration, convinced that it is cheating by breaking itself into pieces to escape. However, Claude immediately realizes that this is actually the perfect opportunity. He understands that if the golem has separated into multiple pieces, then its core must now be exposed somewhere among them. Spica calls upon anima once again. She knows that she has very little mana remaining, so this next attack has to count. At that very moment, she notices countless stones being hurled straight toward her, while the golem rapidly charges in her direction as well. She quickly commands Anima to raise a barrier of thick plants in front of her. Even so, she realizes the situation is dire. She cannot take a shot at the core while she is under constant attack. She wonders if she should simply wait until the golem runs out of ammunition, but she knows Anima's barrier will never last that long. At this rate, she is certain she will die. Just then, Arya intervenes by casting her Aquarius magic, launching a massive aquasphere that crashes into the attacking stones and interrupts the golem's assault. She asks Spica if she really forgot about her, and questions whether Spica truly believed she could defeat the golem all by herself. Arya tells her that she is practically handing her the victory on a silver platter, so she had better finish the job, or she will be furious. Spica gratefully thanks Arya. She realizes that once the barrier breaks, she will have only a single chance to attack. She immediately gathers every vine she has created, weaving them together before twisting them into a powerful whip. With all of her remaining strength, she lashes the massive vine directly at the exposed core. Everyone watches in complete anticipation to see the outcome. As Spica collapses to the ground from exhaustion, she can only hope that she has succeeded. The other examinees begin murmuring among themselves in disbelief. They cannot understand how she managed to defeat the golem after repeatedly casting the very same spell. They wonder who she really is. At the same time, they conclude that the blue-haired girl is just as frightening and question why this year's examiners are so unbelievably strong. Arya walks over to Spica and asks how she managed to become so strong. Spica admits that she never could have defeated the golem without Arya's help and says that she was fortunate Arya was there to support her. At that moment, another voice declares that no one simply defeats a golem through mere luck. Several magicians descend before the examinees, and one of them identifies Spica as examinee number 201, Spica-kun. Startled, Spica immediately demands to know how he knows her name. She calls him a creepy old man and assumes that he must be the villain responsible for controlling the golem. Claude quickly corrects her, explaining that the man is actually the vice principal of the academy and warning her that he becomes extremely intimidating whenever he is angry. The man introduces himself as Justice Libra, the current vice principal of Diana Academy. He politely greets everyone and says that he is pleased to make their acquaintance. Hearing this introduction, Spica instantly realizes that she has just called the vice principal an old man. The examinees are left completely confused, wondering why the vice principal is present. They recall being attacked by monsters and begin worrying about whether they are still on time for the actual entrance examination. Justice Libra apologizes for the frightening experience they have just endured before revealing that the entire incident has officially concluded the preliminary examination. He informs them that if anyone has sustained injuries, healers are already standing by to provide treatment. The announcement leaves every examinee in complete shock. They cannot believe that everything they just experienced was merely the preliminary exam. They realize that the entire ordeal had been a carefully planned setup. Claude reflects on the battle and admits that it finally makes sense. He had thought it was strange that the golem kept missing so many of its attacks. Meanwhile, Spica realizes that she had spent the entire battle believing that the attackers were the heretics once again. The examinees immediately erupt in outrage, shouting that this is completely unfair. They protest that if they had known it was an examination, they would have acted differently. Many complain that they never even had the opportunity to demonstrate what they were capable of, and insist that they cannot simply be sent home after everything that has happened. The vice principal calmly explains that among sorcerers, there are those who choose evil and those who choose good. At Diana Academy, he says, they place the greatest value on those who possess a pure heart. According to him, the preliminary examination has already revealed everything he needed to know about each examinee. It showed how they respond when confronted by danger, whether they flee to save themselves or stand their ground with magic, whether they use their abilities solely for self-preservation or to protect others, and whether they avoid challenges or confront them head-on. He then evaluates the two successful candidates. He remarks that Arya Aquarius acted somewhat recklessly, but she was the very first person to launch an attack, and her command over magic is exceptional. As for Spica, although her magic lacked variety, she demonstrated remarkable courage by protecting others and displayed the quick thinking necessary to defeat the monster. With that, he officially welcomes both Arya and Spica to Diana Academy. Spica stares at him in disbelief, wondering if they have truly passed the examination. The vice principal replies that the formal procedures can be completed another time, as he and the other examiners are still occupied with evaluating the remaining groups. He encourages everyone else to improve themselves based on today's experience, and says that he looks forward to seeing them at Diana Academy in the future. The unsuccessful examinees remain unconvinced, wondering whether this decision is really fair, especially after some of them had spent enormous amounts of money on private tutors. Meanwhile, although Arya has passed, she finds herself strangely frustrated. She realizes that she still has much more training ahead of her. Overcome with emotion, Spica drops to her knees and asks Claude if she is truly not dreaming. Claude tells her not to be so dramatic, reminding her that this is only the beginning. Spica thinks to herself that he is always the same cold and blunt as ever. However, Claude unexpectedly tells her that she fought well without running away, and admits that she deserves credit for that. His praise catches Spica completely off guard. Claude asks whether she is even listening, because she is standing there with a foolish expression on her face. A moment later, Spica wonders how they are supposed to get back home, and asks if someone will give them a ride. Claude simply replies that he has no idea. Spica feels embarrassed for allowing herself to believe, even for a brief moment, that she had seen a different side of Claude. She scolds herself, reminding herself that he is nothing more than an irresponsible fool, or rather, a cat. It was only a small compliment, yet she cannot understand why it makes her so happy. At the same time, she realizes that without Claude and his relentless training, she never would have mastered magic. Without his constant teasing and provocations, she never would have defeated the golem. As much as she hates to admit it, perhaps Claude really is an incredible teacher after all. The scene then shifts elsewhere, where someone urgently informs the headmistress that there is a problem. The headmistress asks what has happened. She is told that a letter has arrived from the missing Claude. Her expression immediately brightens as she exclaims that Claude is alive after all, affectionately referring to him as her little idiot apprentice. One of the greatest tourist attractions in Aldea is the Witch Heart Pear Tree. Over 1,000 years old, the enormous tree rises to a staggering height of 900 meters. Deep beneath it, tunnels weave through its massive roots, and anyone who follows those winding passages eventually arrives at the magnificent Royal Academy of Magic, Diana. Founded nearly 1,000 years ago by the witch Selene, the Academy stands as one of the most prestigious magical institutions in existence. Its vast campus is filled with historical buildings, and more than 600 students attend its middle and high school divisions. Spica can hardly believe that she has actually made it to Diana. Everywhere she looks, there are impressive clubs and societies, including the Incantation Riders Society and the Cauldron Dessert Circle. Everything around her appears elegant and distinguished. Every student carries themselves with grace and refinement, exactly as she would expect from such a prestigious academy. Even the uniforms are incredibly adorable. She happily twirls around before suddenly realizing that she is wearing that same cute uniform herself. Claude notices her excitement and remarks that she should calm down because her foolishness is beginning to show. Spica quickly approaches him, surprised that he has been watching her the entire time, and instinctively addresses him as her master. Claude immediately reminds her that, while they are at the academy, she must call him Claude Sensei. Their master and apprentice relationship has to remain a secret. Spica readily agrees before bringing up another secret they are hiding, namely the fact that he transforms into a tiny cat whenever he runs out of mana. She begs him to stop doing that because she has already had enough of it. Just that very morning, she has been forced to kiss his backside once again. Although she knows it is the only way to restore him to his human form, she still finds the entire process unbearably embarrassing. Claude wonders whether she truly hates it that much. Spica naturally does. Claude admits that he dislikes the situation just as much as she does, and genuinely feels guilty for putting her through it. However, he explains that he cannot properly teach her while trapped in the body of a cat. He reminds her that they are partners, and both of them share the same dream of becoming first-class sorcerers. Because of that, they need to work together to make those dreams come true. Despite his sincere words, Spica cannot shake the feeling that he is somehow tricking her. Claude then brings up her coven assignment, assuring her that he intends to put in a good word with the headmistress on her behalf, so there is nothing for her to worry about. Spica is completely confused by what he means. Claude is surprised that she does not already know about the coven system, and wonders whether they failed to teach her such basic information during middle school. She explains that she never attended a magical middle school, and instead studied at an ordinary school. Just as Claude prepares to explain everything, the headmistress arrives. She remarks that he has already begun fraternizing with the students, exactly as she expected. Claude greets her warmly, addressing her as Headmistress Diana, and commenting that it has been quite some time since they last met. Meanwhile, Spica is surprised by how remarkably young the headmistress looks. Headmistress Diana mentions that the entire academy has been buzzing with excitement ever since news of Claude's return spread throughout the school. Around them, students whisper among themselves. Some recall hearing that Claude disappeared years ago, while others wonder whether he truly fled from the heretics. A few even express their hope that they will not end up with such an unreliable teacher. The headmistress points out that, unfortunately, most of the students seem to be doing little more than criticizing him. Claude simply laughs off the remarks, considering the situation rather unfortunate. To prevent any further incidents involving the students, Headmistress Diana asks Claude to remain in her office until the coven announcements are finished. Claude readily agrees, adding that he actually wished to discuss the covens with her as well. Curious about what he wants to talk about, the headmistress leads him away. Before leaving, Claude quietly reminds Spica not to do anything foolish while he is gone. As the two of them walk away together, Spica assumes they must be close friends. However, that assumption is immediately shattered when the headmistress suddenly glares at Claude with obvious fury. She demands to know where he has been for the past 2 years and makes it clear that he will not be escaping responsibility this time. She angrily scolds him, calling him her idiot apprentice. Claude immediately fires back, pointing out that 2 years have passed, yet the headmistress has not aged a single day. He jokingly wonders what kind of spell she must have used to accomplish such a feat. Watching the exchange, Spica begins to doubt that the two of them are actually friends. She then realizes that Claude never got the chance to explain what covens are, leaving her unsure of what she is supposed to do next. Just then, a desperate cry for help echoes nearby, as someone asks whether anybody can hear her. Spica follows the voice, and is shocked to discover a girl stuck halfway inside a wall. Completely bewildered, she wonders how anyone could possibly end up in such a situation. The girl explains that she accidentally stumbled into the wall and somehow became trapped inside it. Embarrassed, she asks Spica if she could please pull her out. After putting in some effort, Spica finally manages to free her from the wall. The grateful girl warmly thanks her, calling Spica a true lifesaver. Meanwhile, Spica cannot help thinking that an incredibly beautiful girl has just emerged from the wall. The girl introduces herself as Io Taurus and asks for Spica's name. Spica introduces herself in return and explains that she is a first-year student. Io happily reveals that she is also a freshman. However, after glancing at Io's noticeably mature figure, Spica quietly questions whether they really are in the same year. Io cheerfully says that she hopes they both end up in the same coven. Completely confused, Spica finally asks what a coven actually is. Io explains that a coven is essentially what ordinary schools would call a class. Each coven consists of 12 students and 1 teacher. The members share not only the same classroom but also the same dormitory, and they remain together for an entire 3-year period. Hearing that, Spica is completely stunned. She cannot believe they stay with the same group for all 3 years, realizing just how important their coven assignment really is. She immediately recalls Claude mentioning that he needed to speak with the headmistress. It suddenly occurs to her that he was probably trying to make sure she would be placed in his own coven. She silently hopes that, regardless of where she ends up, everyone in her coven will be kind. Io explains that she has attended Diana ever since middle school, so she already knows many of the students. According to her, they are all friendly people who work incredibly hard. Spica thinks that such an atmosphere is exactly what she should expect from a prestigious academy. Io then mentions that the coven assignments should be announced soon and suggests that they head over to the bulletin board together. Before they can get very far, someone suddenly bumps into Spica. The young man immediately catches her before she can lose her balance and anxiously asks whether she is all right, worrying that he might have hurt her. He expresses relief that she is unharmed, adding that he would never want to injure someone as beautiful as she is. Before Spica can even process what has just happened, the young man instantly shifts his attention to Io instead. He enthusiastically declares that she is every bit as beautiful as a goddess before introducing himself as Libra, and saying that it is a pleasure to meet her. Watching his behavior, Spica immediately concludes that he is nothing more than a shameless womanizer. A moment later, Libra tells Io that they should continue their conversation another time. Without missing a beat, he turns toward another passing girl and claims that she has dropped her handkerchief before calling out to get her attention. Seeing this, Spica begins to wonder whether he is actually some kind of pickup artist. Io mentions that she has heard the vice principal has a son, causing Spica to wonder whether she is really going to be all right at this academy. Meanwhile, the young man catches up to the girl, gently takes hold of her hand, and openly admits that he lied about the handkerchief because he simply wanted an excuse to speak with her. He politely asks whether she could spare a moment of her time. Concerned, Spica asks Io whether they should stop him. However, Io calmly reassures her that there is no need to worry. Both of them attended Diana together during middle school, so she already knows exactly who he is. His name, she explains, is actually Gemini. Gemini immediately snaps back, demanding to know who the man thinks he is calling his lady. Furious, he declares that he is going to split the man's skull in half. Spica agrees with Io's confusion, pointing out that Gemini is wearing pants as well, so she cannot understand how anyone could mistake him for a girl. Libra casually remarks that it is strange and assumes the man simply got mixed up. He then wonders whether Gemini is really going to lose his temper just because someone mistook him for a woman. Gemini angrily insists that it is not because of the misunderstanding, but because the man dared to put his filthy hands on him, and he vows to kill him. Libra, surprised by the reaction, questions whether Gemini is some kind of germ freak and tells him that the man should simply apologize instead. Before long, Gemini and the man begin fighting each other. Just then, a voice suddenly orders them to knock it off. Everyone looks up to see a woman standing dramatically on top of the chandelier, causing Spica to wonder who the mysterious lady is. However, instead of making an impressive entrance, the woman immediately falls from the chandelier and lands on the ground. She complains that the fighting has started again and that everyone is paying more attention to the brawl than to her. Feeling completely ignored, she declares that she will never forgive them. Spica cannot help but notice how incredibly muscular Leo is. Libra greets Leo and jokingly asks why she has fallen from the chandelier despite all the dramatic posing. Leo dismisses the question as foolish, confidently explaining that it is because she naturally stands out wherever she goes. Castor impatiently tells Leo that she is in the way and orders her to leave, even mocking her by calling her a muscle chick. Leo calmly responds that if he wants her gone, then he will have to force her to move. Libra sighs and remarks that this is exactly the problem with savages. Meanwhile, Io appears completely uninterested in the argument and quietly wonders what the cafeteria is serving for lunch. As Spica watches the chaotic scene unfold before her, she is left completely stunned. She had always believed that Diana Academy was supposed to be filled with refined and respectable people, yet the reality before her is nothing like what she had imagined. She hesitates, wondering whether she should step in and stop the fight, but at the same time, she is far too curious to see what kind of magic these students possess. Libra activates his Libra magic, Eyes of Themis. Castor mocks him, asking why he is closing his eyes, before charging forward and throwing a barrage of punches at him. Despite keeping his eyes shut, Libra effortlessly dodges every single attack. He confidently explains that avoiding attacks like Castor's is easy for him, even with his eyes closed. In response, Castor activates his Gemini magic, Mirror Argument, creating multiple clones of himself. The copies immediately rush toward Libra, intending to overwhelm him from every direction. Castor confidently declares that Libra can brag about his abilities only after dealing with every one of them. Rather than becoming intimidated, Libra calmly thanks Castor for the advice. The other students watch the battle in complete disbelief, commenting on how unbelievably violent everyone is, and insisting that someone should quickly call for a professor. However, before anyone can intervene, Leo suddenly joins the battle herself. She complains that this is no good, because everyone is completely ignoring her, while giving all of their attention to the others. Without hesitation, she charges at one of Castor's clones, grabs it, and violently throws it aside. She boldly declares that if all they want to do is fight, then she will gladly join them. Libra politely remarks that receiving such an invitation from a lovely lady is certainly flattering, but he decides that he will pass this time. Watching the terrifying exchange, Spica cannot believe that such frightening people actually attend the academy. She silently resolves that she absolutely must do everything possible to avoid them throughout the next 3 years. At that very moment, a stone suddenly comes flying through the air and strikes Spica. Io immediately rushes over and asks whether she is all right. Spica reassures her that she is fine, explaining that the impact has only left a small swelling. Even so, Io becomes absolutely furious. Since Spica is the one who saved her, seeing her get hurt fills Io with rage. Io immediately activates her Taurus magic, Bull of Heaven, Gugalana, and commands everyone to stop fighting at once. Seeing the enormous magical beast appear, Castor can only think that all the women in this place are complete monsters. Meanwhile, Libra casually comments that, in his opinion, big women are actually wonderful, asking whether Castor does not agree. Leo suddenly comes charging in from behind and excitedly wonders what all the commotion is about. Looking at the enormous magical bull, she remarks that it stands out so much that she cannot help feeling jealous. At the same moment, Spica notices that Leo is directly behind Io and urgently calls out to warn her. Realizing that she is about to lose her balance, Io immediately grabs hold of Leo's skirt and apologizes. Even then, her body continues tipping forward, and she is on the verge of falling directly onto Spica. Watching the enormous figure coming toward her, Spica panics, convinced that Io's giant butt is about to crush her. Just before disaster strikes, Claude suddenly appears and catches Io, preventing her from falling. Calmly, he tells her not to stir up trouble on campus. The moment everyone recognizes him, the entire area erupts into excitement. The students shout in disbelief that it is really Claude, and that he has actually returned. Castor, however, narrows his eyes and demands to know why he is there. Claude casually replies that he has naturally come for all of them. With a wave of his magic, he causes everyone present to begin floating into the air. He then announces that Castor, Libra, Leo, Io, and Spica all belong to his coven, and that they are now his students. The announcement leaves Spica completely stunned. She cannot believe that she has been placed in the same coven as such terrifying people. Internally, she cries out in despair, wondering how she is ever going to survive the next 3 years. Even so, she understands the difficult circumstances surrounding Claude's return. Earlier, the headmistress had informed Claude that, as her former apprentice, she would accept his reinstatement as a professor and would also place Spica in his coven. However, she warns him that the rest of the academy will not accept him so easily. The many rumors surrounding his disappearance have made the students uneasy and distrustful of him, and his reputation is nothing like it once was. Because of that, she proposes an idea to restore everyone's confidence in him. She explains that she has gathered several students who possess exceptional latent talent and assigned every one of them to Claude's coven. Unfortunately, every one of those students is also rather eccentric. She informs him that he will be responsible for looking after all 12 of them. The students under his care are Capella, Capricorn, Evie, Arius, Miro Pisces, Chiron Sagittarius, Tar Cancer, Hana, Sasso Riho, Aria Aquarius, along with Castor, Libra, Leo, Io, and Spica. She gives him one strict condition. Every student in his coven must reach graduation without a single dropout. If even one of them fails to make it to graduation, Claude himself will have to leave the academy. Hearing those conditions, Claude quietly reflects that he never imagined he would once again stand in this position. Nevertheless, he accepts the challenge without hesitation, resolving that he will personally look after every single one of his students. To him, this marks the beginning of a brand new chapter in his life as a professor. Suddenly, Claude's body begins glowing with magical light. In the next instant, he completely disappears. Everyone stares around in confusion, wondering where the professor has gone since he had been standing there only a moment earlier. A second later, the students notice a small cat sitting nearby and begin wondering why there is a cat on campus, with several of them commenting on how adorable it is. Spica, however, is the only one who immediately realizes what has happened. Claude explains to her that the spell he just used completely drained the last of his remaining magic. Spica immediately shouts that she warned him to be careful and desperately asks what he is supposed to do now. Claude calmly asks whether she can please break the curse one more time. The moment she hears those words, Spica immediately turns around and runs away. Thus, on the very first day of Claude's coven, Spica flees from her professor. And with Professor Claude absent, the class is cancelled before it can even begin. The next morning, Io calls out to Spica, telling her that it is morning and that she needs to wake up. However, Spica simply turns away and insists that she wants to sleep a little longer. In response, Io lifts both Spica and her bed together, declaring that she will carry her all the way to school. Startled by this, Spica immediately begins shouting that she will get up, begging Io to put her down already. The scene then shifts to the student dormitory, which is located only a 10-minute walk away from Diana Academy. Professor Claude and all of his students are living together in the same building. As everyone begins their morning, one of the dormitory helpers greets them with a cheerful good morning. Spica enters the dining room and notices the wonderful aroma of the breakfast being prepared, thinking that it smells absolutely amazing. At the same time, 2 other students are already arguing with one another. Seeing the commotion, Io remarks that they are unusually noisy this morning and that they have completely ruined her elegant tea time. Spica apologizes to her on their behalf, and Io responds that everything is fine as long as they understand. Immediately afterward, she casually begins gulping down her tea straight from the teapot. While everyone else peacefully enjoys their breakfast, Spica has another responsibility that she must take care of every single morning. She walks over to Professor Claude's room and knocks on the door. Claude opens it and immediately complains that she has taken long enough, wondering what they would have done if they had ended up being late for class. Spica points out that this is hardly the proper way to ask someone for a favor. Meanwhile, the dormitory helper happens to be nearby and begins wondering what exactly is happening inside Professor Claude's room. The helper starts trembling after overhearing Spica say that she no longer wants to kiss Claude every single day anymore. Claude, however, explains that she is the only person who can help him and that he truly needs her. Spica then complains that asking for kisses every day is simply too much, causing Claude to wonder whether she really hates doing it that much. She quietly admits that it is not really like that. Claude explains that meeting every morning just to turn him back into a human is troublesome for both of them. Spica asks whether there is truly no other solution available. Claude explains that, based on everything they currently know, using only a small amount of magic causes him to revert back into a cat. Even if they do absolutely nothing, the rebirth magic naturally runs out by nighttime, causing him to return to being a cat regardless. As things stand, they are essentially stuck with this situation. Furthermore, Spica can only use her rebirth magic once each day, and she must get proper sleep in order to replenish her magical power. Claude admits that he has no desire to continue living under these circumstances forever. Therefore, over the next 3 years, his plan is to train Spica until she becomes a first-class magician by the time she graduates. Curious, Spica wonders how someone becomes a first-class magician. Claude explains that she must pass the ranking examination held by the Royal Palace once every year. He also mentions that, despite Diana Academy's prestigious reputation, only one student in its entire history has ever succeeded in becoming a first-class magician. Hearing this, Spica remarks that the examination must be incredibly difficult and that the person who accomplished such a feat must have been truly extraordinary. She then wonders who that remarkable individual could possibly be. Claude proudly reveals that the person is none other than himself. The realization immediately makes Spica regret praising him so enthusiastically. Ignoring her reaction, Claude firmly states that, over the next 3 years, she must focus on earning excellent grades throughout her time at the academy. At the very least, Claude explains that Spica needs to rank at the very top of her class if she hopes to become a first-class magician. On the other hand, he warns that he himself will be expelled if her academic performance is poor, so she must be especially careful. At Diana Academy, it is official policy that the students who rank in the bottom 10% of their academic year are expelled. Because of this, he advises her not to become too distracted by the excitement of school life. With that, Claude opens the door and announces that it is time to head to class. As he steps outside, he greets the dormitory helper with a polite good morning. The helper, still caught up in her own thoughts, accidentally blurts out that he is an animal, before immediately correcting herself, and awkwardly wishing him a good morning as well. Deep down, she continues imagining an illicit relationship between a teacher and his student, convinced that their secret morning meetings are unbelievably scandalous. Meanwhile, Spica confidently believes that the whole issue of expulsion has absolutely nothing to do with her. She is far too excited about beginning her school life and becomes completely carried away despite Claude's warning. The morning studies take place in the Northern Classroom building. Students from the various covens gather there to receive lectures on astrology and other magical fundamentals. Unfortunately for Spica, the professor speaks so quickly that she is unable to remember anything being taught. To make matters even stranger, the girl sitting beside her is completely asleep throughout the lecture. The professor notices this and orders the sleeping student to wake up. Hoping to help, Spica quietly tells the girl that the professor is glaring directly at them and that she should wake up already. Instead, the professor turns his attention towards Spica herself and tells her to stop chatting during class. He then suddenly calls on her to recite the equation for universal gravitation. Spica freezes in confusion as the professor points out that he had explained it only moments earlier and that she should be able to answer if she had been paying attention. The surrounding students begin whispering among themselves, wondering whether anyone could actually remember such a difficult equation. Many of them feel sorry for Spica, believing she has been put into an impossible situation. Inside her mind, Spica desperately wishes that someone would rescue her from the embarrassment. At that exact moment, the girl sitting beside her suddenly stands up. The professor looks at her in surprise, wondering whether she intends to answer the question. Spica is equally shocked, pointing out that the girl had been asleep the entire time. To everyone's surprise, Evie calmly recites the correct formula for universal gravitation, without making a single mistake. The professor confirms that her answer is completely correct, before reminding Spica that she also needs to study the material properly. Amazed, Spica remarks that Evie is actually incredibly smart. However, almost immediately afterward, she notices Evie has already fallen asleep once again. This leaves Spica wondering how someone can sleep through the lecture, answer such a difficult question perfectly, and then go right back to sleep. Unable to understand her at all, Spica even begins questioning whether she herself is simply stupid. The afternoon studies take place in the Western classroom building, known as Mimosa. Claude informs the class that he will be teaching practical magic, and that today's lesson will be used to measure each student's magical ability. He explains that their task is to use magic to capture creatures known as rope horns. The exercise is a competition in which the students must catch as many rope horns as possible within 30 minutes. Although the creatures appear adorable, they are actually troublesome pests. Claude remarks that ordinary people have great difficulty catching them, but students of Diana Academy should have no trouble at all. He sarcastically adds that there surely is not a single slowpoke among them who cannot even catch one, causing Spica to think that he is putting an enormous amount of pressure on everyone. As soon as the race begins, Arya asks Spica whether she can really catch any of the rope horns. Spica confidently reminds her that she successfully captured the golem before, so catching a few rabbit-like creatures should be easy. Believing in her own abilities, she decides to rely entirely on her magic. Even if Spica performs poorly today, she remains determined to become the very best. She begins by using the Virgo magic, Anima. However, the moment the birds emerge, the rope horn rabbit instantly dashes away. She is left stunned, realizing that it is so unbelievably fast that her spell does not even graze it. Claude explains that rope horns can sense magical power through their horns, allowing them to flee at the slightest trace of magic. He quietly wonders how she intends to deal with such creatures now. Spica immediately switches to the Scorpio magic, Forked Scorpion, successfully causing the rabbit to lose consciousness. She decides that temporarily paralyzing them is the only reliable option, and silently remarks that if the rabbits are going to hate anyone, they should hate the professor instead. Claude notices that she has chosen paralysis magic. He acknowledges that it is an effective approach because the rabbits cannot dodge it, even if they detect the magic. However, he also recognizes that the spell has the drawback of potentially affecting others caught within its range. Tarf then uses the cancer magic, Prison of Steel, Flawed Coffus, successfully capturing a rope horn in his own hands. Watching the others, Spica realizes that Tarf manages to gather them all in a single move. She considers spreading Anima across a much larger area, but immediately dismisses the idea the rabbits would simply escape during the time required to cast such a large spell. She wonders what she should do because, at this rate, she will not catch even a single rope horn. Suddenly, she remembers Claude warning her that she will be expelled if she continues like this. Realizing how serious the situation is, she knows she has to hurry. After the exercise concludes, Claude announces that everyone has done a good job before revealing the final standings. Arya finishes in first place with 12 catches, while Spica ends up in last place with 0 catches. Spica vaguely recalls being struck by a rope horn, and realizes that everything had been over by the time she regained consciousness. Claude approaches her. Although it initially seems as though he is simply acknowledging her effort, he immediately demands to know what on earth she has been doing. He questions whether she possesses absolutely no talent, and bluntly states that she is rapidly heading toward expulsion at this rate. He decides that she will require supplementary lessons after class because her current performance is unacceptable. Although his harsh words make her feel discouraged, she says nothing in response and quietly accepts his decision. Eventually, night falls, and Spica slowly makes her way toward her room. As she walks, she remembers Claude earlier telling her that she must properly learn the techniques. She also cannot stop thinking about how she finished the exercise with the lowest score of 0 catches. She reflects on how everyone around her seems far more talented when it comes to studying and practicing. She had believed she was at least a little more capable than this. After all, her academic grades are among the very best in the academy. She cannot help wondering what she will do if she truly ends up being expelled. As she opens the door, she finds Claude already standing inside, waiting for her. He has clearly been expecting her arrival. He remarks that she certainly took long enough to get there, and assumes that she has been too busy moping and dragging her feet the entire way. Spica immediately tells him to stop talking like that, because she already understands the situation. At the same time, She wonders whether he has simply called her there to lecture her again. Looking around, she becomes curious about the unfamiliar room and wonders why they are there instead of simply holding the extra lesson in his office. Claude explains that the room is one of Diana Academy's observatories and that it serves another important purpose besides observation. Moments later, both of them begin floating through the air. The entire observatory is filled with projection and flawed magic, allowing it to perfectly recreate the environment of outer space around them. The breathtaking sight leaves Spica mesmerized as she admires the beautiful stars surrounding them. Claude points toward 3 brilliant stars, identifying them as Deneb, Altair, and Vega. He then points out the large bluish star known as Spica. Hearing its name, Spica happily remarks that she recognizes that particular star because it shares the same name as she does. Claude explains that although the star appears to be a single object, it is actually 2 stars orbiting each other at tremendous speed, making them appear as one. Spica briefly wonders whether this has unexpectedly become an astronomy lesson. Claude continues by explaining that the 2 stars are both incredibly bright and that the light they produce is said to equal the brilliance of 20,000 suns. Hearing such an incredible fact, Spica is genuinely amazed. Claude then adds that even a weak light can shine brilliantly when it is accompanied by another. Spica pauses to think about those words before wondering whether he is actually trying to encourage her. She interprets his meaning as telling her that even if she cannot succeed on her own, she does not need to worry because he will stand beside her. Claude immediately blushes and firmly denies that such a thought ever crossed his mind. His reaction makes Spica suspect that her interpretation is actually correct. She begins laughing, and as she does, she realizes that laughing has genuinely lifted her spirits and made her feel much better. Claude wonders what could possibly be so amusing. Meanwhile, Spica reflects that she never expected Professor Claude to worry about her in his own awkward way. Being with him makes her feel that she might truly have the potential to become a first-class magician. Claude quickly brings the light-hearted moment to an end and declares that the small talk is over because it is time to begin the supplementary lesson. He informs her that she will not be allowed to leave until she successfully catches more than 12 rope horns. Spica nervously wonders what will happen if she cannot achieve that goal. Claude calmly states that, in that case, they will simply continue practicing all night. Hearing that answer, Spica can only conclude that her professor is unbelievably mean. The headmistress greets Claude with a warm good morning and remarks that it has already been 1 week since his return to the academy. She asks how his students have been doing. Claude replies that they are all good children who are diligent and well-behaved. Hearing that, the headmistress cannot help finding his assessment rather strange based on everything she has heard. According to the reports reaching her, Evie Aries sleeps through every class. Leo constantly tries to stand out by taking over the teacher's podium. Libra openly flirts with the male professors, and Io regularly destroys furniture because of her monstrous strength. She remarks that she could continue listing the endless complaints that have been submitted against the class. She adds that while some students try to keep a low profile, their social standing and even the nature of their magic present their own difficulties. The rest of the academy avoids associating with Claude's class altogether, and she asks whether he is aware that his class has been nicknamed Pandora's Box. Claude simply comments that it is actually a rather clever nickname. His reaction leaves the headmistress wondering whether he should really be laughing about such a situation. She then brings up what she considers his biggest problem, Castor. Originally, Castor attended Diana Academy during middle school, but he quickly developed a reputation for constantly picking fights and causing countless incidents with other students. He is such a notorious troublemaker that he even became involved in a street brawl with local thugs. On top of that, Claude's class appears to be the only lesson that Castor consistently skips. Claude responds that he respects his students' independence and freedom. The headmistress immediately reminds him that if things continue this way, he will receive no teaching credit and will ultimately be expelled from the academy. She asks whether he has already forgotten the condition under which she agreed to reinstate him. Elsewhere, Spica suddenly exclaims that if even one student fails, then Claude will also be forced to leave the academy. She is surprised to realize that he is working under those same conditions. Claude calmly admits that there is a reason for it. Spica becomes concerned, wondering how she is supposed to achieve first place by herself if Claude ends up leaving the academy. Claude admits that it is a serious problem for him as well, which is exactly why he absolutely has to get Castor to attend the afternoon class. Spica nervously remarks that Castor is genuinely frightening. Claude, however, wonders why Castor avoids only his lessons. Although he remembers Castor being rather aggressive during their first meeting, he honestly has no idea why the boy would dislike him. Spica cannot believe he is being serious. She points out that he is foul-mouthed and cynical, adding that she cannot think of a single thing about him that people would naturally like. She then suggests that Claude probably made some sarcastic remark without realizing that teenagers are especially sensitive, advising him that he needs to be more considerate when dealing with Castor. Claude concludes that all he has to do is make Castor realize that he is actually a considerate professor. Just then, Io arrives and calls out to both Spica and Claude, wondering what the two of them are doing together. Claude remarks that her timing is perfect before asking whether she knows where Castor is at that very moment. Io concentrates for a brief moment before saying that she can hear the sounds of a fight taking place outside, so Castor's probably there. Spica cannot help wondering if that is really how everyone manages to locate him. When they arrive outside, they find a student lying on the ground. As Spica looks at the injured student with obvious concern, Castor notices her staring and aggressively demands to know what she is looking at. His intimidating attitude immediately frightens Spica, who instinctively cries out that he is truly terrifying. Meanwhile, Claude ignores Castor's hostility and first checks on the fallen student, asking whether he is all right before turning toward Castor and calmly demanding to know why he did this. Castor explains that the other student had been touching him all over, so he merely returned the favor. After hearing the explanation, Claude remarks that it sounds as though Castor is not entirely innocent either, but he decides to overlook the incident this time. However, he warns him that if he continues getting into fights like this, he will truly be expelled from the academy. Castor coldly replies that if Claude wants to expel him, then he should just do it. Claude refuses. He states that he has no intention of expelling him because Castor is his student, and as his teacher, he intends to remain by his side no matter what happens. He then suggests that Castor attend class today and promises to make it worth his while. Watching from the side, Spica feels that the conversation is finally heading in a promising direction. Castor casually agrees, causing Claude to feel relieved for a brief moment. However, Castor immediately leans closer and quietly adds that he will attend class as soon as Claude quits being a teacher. Claude grits his teeth, realizing that it was nothing more than a sarcastic joke. Spica notices that Claude is dangerously close to losing his temper, so she gathers her courage and decides to intervene. She timidly says that she would also like to study together with Castor. At that exact moment, Io steps forward and firmly tells Castor that he needs to come to class with them. Castor immediately tells her to back away, because she is standing too close to him. Io refuses to move and insists that he cannot be allowed to get expelled. She even declares that she will drag him to class herself if necessary. Castor angrily yells at her not to touch him and complains that she is unbelievably annoying. Io responds that he used to be much more cooperative than this. In return, Castor shouts that he is absolutely never going to attend class. The scene then shifts to the classroom, where Castor is surprisingly sitting among the students after all. Claude begins the lesson by explaining that today's assignment is to gather a rare herb known as the mandrake. He instructs the class to split into groups and search for the plants in the mountains, while he keeps watch over the exercise. He also warns everyone to be careful and under no circumstances enter any restricted areas. He further explains that the roots of a mandrake resemble the shape of a human body. As the groups prepare to leave, Io happily thanks Castor for actually coming to class. Castor dismissively replies that the only reason he came is because she refused to leave him alone. The first group consists of Io, Spica, and Castor. Once they arrive in the mountains, Io enthusiastically calls out to Castor and tells him that he should help search for the herbs as well. Castor says nothing. Io walks over and pulls on the tree he is resting against, insisting that he cannot slack off. Having no other choice, he gets up and shouts that the woman is a monster. Meanwhile, Spica asks if Castor was really in the same middle school class as Io. At that moment, mud suddenly splatters all over her, and she thinks that this is the worst. Castor walks over and silently offers her a napkin, telling her to use it. Spica hesitates, wondering if she can really use something that belongs to him, but he tells her that the stain will set if she does not wipe it off quickly. She accepts the napkin and thanks him. For a brief moment, she thinks that perhaps he is not as scary as he seems. She even comments that he has surprisingly cute taste. However, the instant she looks at his face again, she immediately takes that thought back, deciding that he is still incredibly scary. Just then, Claude arrives and says that he is glad Castor decided to join the class. He asks how he is doing and tells him that he should feel free to ask anything he does not understand. He even explains that mandrakes grow best in high-moisture environments. Watching the exchange, Spica thinks that Claude is normally so arrogant, yet he is completely pulling off the act of a kind and friendly teacher. Castor remains silent for a while, but eventually tells Claude to shut up. He says Claude should stop trying to kiss his butt because it is disgusting when he does not even mean it. He makes it clear that he only came because I.O. dragged him there, and declares that he will never attend Claude's lessons again after this. Claude remarks that Castor certainly has some nerve. Spica quietly whispers to Claude, reminding him not to get angry because he has to keep acting like the nice guy. However, Claude decides that pretending will not solve anything. He says they will never understand each other unless they speak honestly, then directly asks Castor what he dislikes about him, adding that a man should not throw around one-sided hatred without explaining the reason. Castor replies that calling it one-sided makes sense because Claude finds it easy enough to ignore what happened. As he turns to leave, he says that he has absolutely nothing to learn from a worthless coward like him. Confused, Claude asks what he is even talking about. Clenching his teeth, Castor reminds him of the day the cultists attacked. He accuses Claude of running away, abandoning the students, and never coming back. Just as Claude is about to explain himself, I.O. calls out to him, asking whether she has found the correct herbs. She wonders if he can hear her. At that very moment, she loses her footing and begins falling into the lake. Seeing this, Castor rushes toward her and reaches out his hand, telling her to grab it. Instead, I.O. uses her tallest magic to make herself grow gigantic, thinking that it was a close call. However, while I.O. saves herself, Castor loses his balance and falls into the river instead. I.O. watches in shock as Castor is swept downstream, wondering why he is the one being carried away by the current. As the river drags him along, Castor thinks that this is unbelievably embarrassing. He curses his bad luck and realizes that he cannot swim properly while wearing such heavy clothes. I.O. reaches out her hand and tells him to grab onto it, but he is unable to reach her. After struggling against the current for quite some time, Castor finally manages to reach the shore. He pulls himself onto the bank and coughs repeatedly, thinking that this is the worst. He realizes he has been swept a long way downstream, has no idea where he is, and notices that all of his clothes are completely soaked. He decides that he has to dry them somehow. Just then, Claude arrives and asks if Castor is all right. However, the moment he sees Castor without the layers of clothing concealing her body, his eyes widen in shock as he realizes that Castor is actually a girl. Spica also cries out in complete surprise that Castor is a girl. At that instant, Claude remembers that she is the same girl he met back then. Spica wonders if this is an ability of the Gemini constellation, but Claude does not respond. This makes her ask whether he is even listening. The girl then comments that Claude must have been so infatuated with her body that he completely zoned out, teasing him for how naughty that would be. Claude immediately assures her to relax, explaining that he would never look at one of his students that way. She remarks that his sense of humor is just as dry as ever. Spica notices that her personality is completely different and wonders if she is really. Castor I.O. explains that her name is Pollux. Pollux introduces herself, saying that she and Castor are twin siblings who share the same body. She explains that whenever a male touches them, Castor appears, while being touched by a female brings her out instead. Since I.O. touched her earlier, that is why Pollux is the one standing before them now. Spica wonders if every Gemini possesses an ability like that. Pollux replies that they do not. She explains that this particular magic is unique to the two of them, before asking whether Spica would like to see what ordinary Gemini magic looks like. Spica eagerly says that she would. Pollux then removes her shirt while Spica desperately tries to make sure Claude does not look. Using Gemini magic mirror garment, Pollux first casts the spell on Spica and then on herself, instantly changing into a new set of clothes. Spica exclaims that she transformed again and says that it is amazing. Pollux proudly agrees and explains that she can copy anything she has scanned with her light magic. Spica realizes that Pollux is wearing a copy of her school uniform. Pollux confirms that it is, but comments that the chest area feels a little tight. She jokes that perhaps she should have copied I.O.'s uniform instead. I.O. quickly objects, saying that she does not think she is that small. Watching the conversation, Spica thinks that they really should not turn it into a competition, especially since this coven already has so many large-chested girls. She asks Claude about it, but he immediately tells her not to ask him, because he was not the one who chose them. Claude then says that Now that they have confirmed a Gemini is safe, they should return to the lesson. He tells Pollux that she will also participate in searching for the herbs. In response, Pollux creates another clone of herself before casually asking whether he is referring to the herb inside the jar she is holding. Spica shouts in astonishment that there are now 2 Polluxes and wonders where she even got that herb. Claude suddenly realizes that it is the very herb he had been carrying. Shocked, he wonders when she managed to steal it. Pollux laughs and happily says that there it is, the look of panic she wanted to see. She explains that Claude saw her naked body yet kept acting completely calm, so she simply had to wipe that composed expression off his face. She proudly asks whether her magic is not amazing, explaining that she can bend light to make herself transparent. Claude quickly pieces everything together. He realizes that her clone must have stolen the herb from inside his robe. She created the clone while distracting everyone by taking off her clothes, and while pretending to copy a school uniform, she was actually casting distortion magic instead. Pollux confirms that his deduction is completely correct. Spica is amazed, thinking that she cannot believe Pollux managed to deceive the professor so completely with her magic. Pollux then points out that she has successfully completed the task, so she asks whether she is free to leave now. Claude immediately refuses and tells her to hand the herb back. Pollux grins and tells him that, if he wants it, he should try taking it from her by force. Claude replies that he could never do something so reckless to one of his students. Pollux smiles sweetly and remarks that he really does care about his students. However, she then coldly reminds him that he abandoned them when they needed him most. She questions why someone like that is able to continue teaching as though nothing ever happened. Claude states that he understands that she still holds a grudge over what happened that day. His words leave Spica wondering what she means by saying that he abandoned them. Castor had said something similar before, making her question whether the rumor could actually be true. Meanwhile, Io tells Pollux that they should simply return it because she would like to go looking for it together with her. Spica reminds them that they are currently in the middle of class and says they can talk about it later. However, Pollux remarks that everyone is already on his side and tells them to just leave them alone. She apologizes for disturbing the class, bids everyone goodbye, and walks away. Claude finds the entire situation unbelievable. With no other option left, Spica asks him what really happened between the 2 of them. She questions whether the rumor about him running away is actually true. At last, Claude begins to explain. He says that it happened 2 years ago when Pollux was still a middle school student and he was teaching there. Although she was not a member of his coven, she had been very fond of him. He describes her as a bright and kind girl. However, when the cultist attack occurred that day, he left her and the others behind even as they pleaded for help. He admits that this part of the rumor is true. Spica cannot understand his actions and wonders why he would ever do such a thing. Claude apologizes and says that he cannot tell her the reason right now. She questions why he is unable to explain, but he only replies that it is a sin he must bear alone. He promises that one day, when everything has settled, he will tell her the entire truth. Setting the matter aside, Claude says that he needs to go and find Pollux. He explains that the area ahead is restricted and dangerous, so he instructs Spica and Io to remain exactly where they are until he returns. As Claude leaves, Spica struggles to believe that the rumors could actually be true. She simply cannot accept it. At that moment, Io suddenly shouts after noticing someone ahead, saying that there is a shadow over there. Spica sees it as well and wonders whether it could be Pollux. She hesitates because the professor specifically ordered them to stay where they are. However, the figure appears to be hanging by the neck, making her feel that they cannot simply stand by without helping. The 2 of them rush over, urging the person not to give up. Upon getting closer, however, Spica realizes that it is nothing more than a wooden figure. She finds the sight disgusting. Before they can react any further, both of them become trapped in thick mud. They struggle desperately as they realize how incredibly sticky it is and that they cannot move at all. From a nearby tree branch, Pollux watches the entire scene and wonders what on earth the 2 of them are doing. She finds it rather embarrassing that they meet again so soon after she had made such a cool exit. Spica explains that they came looking for her because they heard this area is dangerous and off-limits. Pollux informs them that the hanging figure is merely a pseudo-bait, a trap created by monsters to lure unsuspecting people toward them. The moment she finishes explaining, she remembers that they have to escape immediately. Just then, a monster emerges from behind them. Pollux instantly realizes that it has been using a tree as camouflage. At the same time, Spica cries out in horror after recognizing it as the same disgusting bug monster. The creature immediately lunges toward Pollux. At the same time, someone anxiously asks whether she is all right. Spica urgently tells Pollux to run away and find the professor instead. Pollux questions what will happen to the two of them if she leaves. Spica declares that, if that is the only option, she will continue fighting until the professor arrives, and she pleads with Pollux to hurry. Pollux remarks that Spica certainly has courage, especially considering how terrified she had been of her brother earlier. At that very moment, Spica shouts a warning for Pollux to watch out. Without any hesitation, Pollux unleashes the Gemini magic of the Goddess of Light and destroys the bug monster. She declares that there is no point in calling that loser professor, because she herself will protect everyone. On the day she enrolls at Diana Academy, Spica becomes completely enchanted by magic, the very first time she witnesses it. The magic that captivates her heart is the magic called admiration. Back in the present, Spica tells Pollux that she is truly amazing. She finds it hard to believe that one of her own classmates possesses such incredible strength. Pollux happily tells her to keep praising her even more. Spica then asks whether Castor can use the same magic. Pollux immediately replies that he cannot, bluntly stating that her brother is terrible at magic. Spica comments that Gemini spell magic is incredibly cool and even seems like a lot of fun. Pollux admits that many people find it strange or unsettling, but she personally likes it as well. She explains that she has been able to stay together with her brother ever since they were born. She then says that she had misunderstood Spica, believing that she was simply a timid and sheltered girl. However, the way Spica stood up against that bug monster had been genuinely impressive. Pollux even remarks that it is a huge step above Claude. Spica reminds her that they really need to inform the professor that they have found Pollux. However, Pollux immediately begs her not to do that. Elsewhere, Io begins looking around in confusion, wondering where everyone has gone. Pollux turns toward her and asks what she means, because they are all standing right there. However, they suddenly realize that one of the bug monsters has Io's face trapped inside its mouth. Io cries out that everything has gone dark, that she cannot see anything, and that it hurts terribly. She desperately asks what is happening. The two girls panic and cry out in terror, wondering why there are suddenly so many bug monsters surrounding them. Meanwhile, Claude is engaged in battle against one of the bugs himself. Frustrated, he complains that it attacked him completely out of nowhere. At that moment, he notices Pollux using her magic and realizes that she is fighting. He immediately wonders what is happening over there. He also notices that the bug monsters continue crawling out one after another without stopping. He knows that using greater magic there would force him to transform back into a cat, which would create even more problems, but he realizes that he has no choice and must hurry to their location. At the same time, the three girls continue fighting with everything they have to eliminate the monsters. They wonder how many bugs they have already defeated, only to realize that they stopped counting after 10. None of them expected so many monsters to be hiding there. Even after defeating so many, they find themselves surrounded by another 8 bugs, and the situation looks increasingly hopeless. Io apologizes, explaining that she is suffering from the backlash of her giant transformation magic and no longer believes she can move. Pollux reassures her that everything will be fine and says she will handle the rest herself. However, at that very moment, one of the bug monsters suddenly attacks and wraps itself around her, attempting to strangle her. Unfortunately for the creature, Pollux has already created a new clone. She resolves that she will protect everyone. She remembers the promise she once made with Castor to become stronger, and convinces herself that she truly has the strength to fulfill that promise. Inside her body, Castor urgently tells her that she needs to retreat, because she is almost completely out of magic. Pollux dismisses him, saying that she is busy right now and telling him not to interrupt her. Castor insists that this is not the time to argue. He warns her that she is in far over her head and desperately needs to run away. Pollux refuses. She asks whether he is really telling her to abandon the other 2 girls. She declares that she cannot do such a thing. Even if all of her magic runs out, she will continue fighting with her own body if she has to. She continues battling the monsters with unwavering determination. However, Castor realizes that Pollux cannot keep this up any longer. Moments later, her magical clothing begins to disperse, and the last of her magic finally gives out. Spica calls out to Pollux as a monster is about to attack her from behind. At that very moment, Claude appears out of nowhere and instantly eliminates the monster. He apologizes, saying that he is sorry for being late. Pollux angrily shouts at him, demanding to know why he is here and calling him nothing more than a coward. Ignoring the insult, Claude gently places a cloak over her shoulders and tells her that this time he will protect her. He promises that he will protect everyone. Spica asks what those insects are. Claude explains that they are magic sects, monsters that camouflage themselves within trees. They use placebo bait and saliva to lure humans before preying on them. They are also known as the walking forest. On rare occasions, they have been known to gather into enormous swarms and attack entire villages. He adds that the screech from the Class 1 monster probably attracted the rest of them. Spica anxiously asks what they are supposed to do now, saying that there are far too many for even him to handle. Claude calmly tells her not to worry. More importantly, he praises everyone for surviving as long as they have. He says they can leave the rest to him because he will not let a single one escape. Claude then casts the greatest Secretarius magic, Animo Borean Arrow. Pollux's eyes widen in amazement as she watches the spell. She thinks that it is incredibly beautiful. She immediately recognizes it. This is the magic she has admired for so long. Although the entire ordeal is terrifying, the group finally makes it safely out of the forest. Claude says that he is going to make sure he has not missed a single monster. This time, they do not need to go anywhere. Before leaving, he gives Spica a playful wink and tells her that he is about to turn back into a cat, so she will have to handle the rest. However, there is one last thing he needs to do first. Claude walks over to Pollux and Castor, kneels before them, and sincerely apologizes for abandoning them in the past. He admits that it is true, he placed everyone in a terrible situation. He says he is not there to make excuses, but if they can give him just one more chance, he swears that he will protect his students no matter what. He asks them to watch him and see for themselves. As soon as he finishes speaking, he quietly vanishes and transforms back into a cat, relieved that no one notices. Spica turns to Pollux and says that she believes the professor has his reasons for everything. She recalls that he told her he could not explain anything right now, though she still wonders why. She admits that it is strange. Even so, he saved all of them today. He is probably completely exhausted after rushing there as quickly as he could to rescue them. Because of that, she wants to believe in him. Pollux thinks that she is grateful he saved them this time, but that alone is still not enough to make up for abandoning them back then. Even so, if he is truly that powerful, she cannot understand why he ran away in the first place. She wonders what kind of person he really is. Wanting to discover the truth for herself, she decides that she will start attending classes from now on. She tells the others that they can inform the professor of her decision. The others happily think that it is wonderful news, while Pollux quietly wonders what is really going on with that mysterious cat. Claude internally thanks Pollux, but he remains curious about one thing. Even though the area is strictly off-limits, not even the magic sects inhabit it. He wonders whether someone is responsible for that. The scene then shifts to a group of people discussing the situation. They remark that all the magic sects they had been using on civilians are already dead, while one of them comments that it looks delicious. They begin to wonder whether Claude has truly returned. Some of them consider killing him, but one of the men reminds the others that Claude is not their target. Their true objective is the girl who possesses rebirth magic, Spica Virgo. Today, the students use all the herbs they have gathered to prepare a medicine that enhances magical power. Following the forest incident, Castor begins attending class again. During class, someone approaches him and comments that having more men around certainly leaves a strong musk in the air. The student introduces himself as Esther, before expressing his curiosity about Castor's ability to transform into a girl, and asks him to demonstrate it. Castor immediately asks Professor Claude whether he is allowed to kill the guy, but Claude makes it clear that such a thing is not permitted during class. Meanwhile, Leo proudly arrives and informs the professor that she has caught a deer, asking whether she can put it into the cooking pot. Claude immediately orders her to return the deer to the wild. It becomes obvious that it will still take quite some time before these unique students can be brought under control. Spica then suggests that this would be the perfect opportunity for everyone to enjoy a hot pot together. However, the moment Claude fixes her with a sharp glare, she immediately apologizes. Arya quietly walks over and stares at Spica. Spica asks what is wrong, but Arya simply replies that it is nothing before walking away. Left behind, Spica cannot help wondering whether Arya is upset with her or if something else is bothering her. After class, Spica's daily routine continues with private magic lessons under Professor Claude's guidance. Using Virgo magic, Anima, she attempts to catch a rabbit. However, she quickly becomes completely exhausted, as the creatures are simply too fast for her to catch. Claude reminds her that the middle trial is approaching rapidly and warns that she is practically asking to fail if she cannot even catch a single Roforn. Spica complains that there is nothing she can do because the Roforns sense magic through their horns and run incredibly fast. She believes that Anima is simply not suitable for dealing with creatures like them and wishes she could use some other type of magic instead. Claude, however, explains that the problem is not Anima itself, but the fact that she has yet to realize its true potential. This leaves Spica wondering exactly what he means. Claude explains that the possibilities of every form of magic are endless, depending entirely on the magician using it. He states that creating innovative ideas and adapting them for practical use is what truly makes an excellent magician. Spica cannot help thinking that he has just said something surprisingly cool. She even considers taking notes, although she also finds him incredibly annoying. Even so, she continues wondering what exactly qualifies as an innovative idea. As an example, Claude explains that Aquarius magic possesses the ability to manipulate the shape of water, and that the magician's own ideas are an extremely important factor in determining how effectively that power can be used. Arya is already quite advanced when it comes to that, so Claude suggests that Spica ask her for some new tips. However, the look Arya gives him clearly conveys her refusal.